Here is the step-by-step for how I completely transformed this room using IKEA hacks and DIY. Our primary objective for this makeover is to add a ton of character, so we wanted to do that by adding a lot of craftsman trim and this amazing feature wall. We started with color drenching the space in this really beautiful rich green color. For the accent wall, we wanted to do a grid pattern over beadboard. The beadboard comes in 4-foot by 8-foot panels at the hardware store, but we were working with 9-foot ceilings. Instead of custom ordering 12-foot beadboard panels, we just decided to work with the 4x8 and cut them down on the table saw. We used a board and batten calculator to strategically plan the grid so that it would cover all of those seams. We attached the panels to the wall using brad nails and then made sure our wooden grid pattern was anchored into the studs in multiple places. We caulked all of the seams in between the beadboard panels, and we also caulked in between the wood and the wall. We primed the entire feature wall and then painted it to match the rest of the room. I love that the beadboard makes it feel very traditional, but the grid line brings a little bit of a modern element to it. Now we are moving into an IKEA hack around the windows where we use Billy bookcases to build a little library area. I knew I wanted a bench in between both of the bookcases, and the Billy bookcases aren't very deep, so I had to build this framing behind the Billy bookcases in order to fur out the bookcase to make it the depth that I wanted. I used these 2x10 boards and 2x4s and then anchored them into the wall studs. It was very sturdy. Once those were installed, I attached the Billy bookcases to that, making sure that everything was flush and level. Now, a lot of people, when they do an IKEA Billy bookcase hack, they will build out some framing for the bottom as well for everything to sit on. I didn't do that because we are in Texas and we are on a concrete slab, and if they ever wanted to tear this out for any reason, I didn't want to mess up their flooring, so I just decided to attach it all onto the wall. Once I had the 2 Billy bookcases secured, we moved into building the bench that would go in between both of the bookcases. I built the framing out of 2x4s using wood glue and pocket holes. I like using pocket holes because if I use them in conjunction with wood glue, I know it's going to be really secure. And with a big project like this, you have to celebrate every single little win. My husband is like, wow, you can really build things. I'm like, I know, right? We opted to carry over the beadboard from the feature wall to the front of the bench, and I think it just makes it really cohesive and ties it together. For the bench top, we knew we wanted it to be able to open so that they could have storage inside the bench, so we just took it down the table saw and then used this hinge to attach the 2 pieces together. The skinnier side is what we're going to attach to the bench top, and then that bigger part is the part that's going to open. I countersunk some screws so that everything was nice and secure, and now they're going to have plenty of storage inside that bench, which is really, really cool. To make this all feel like one unit, I wanted to add a lot of craftsman trim around these windows to help bring the 2 units together. Since these windows weren't framed out at all, I think it gives it a lot of charm and character. For the header, I used a 1x6 with a 1x2 attached to it. Then for the front of this bench top, I thought I was really smart. I added a little trim detail that's going to act as the handle for when you want to open the bench. Then there was just a lot of finishing stuff. We used 1x3s around the sides of the windows, and then it was time to add the arches to the bookcase. For the arch, I used 3/4 inch plywood so that it would match up with all of the 1x2s that I was also using to finish out the front of the bookcases. I think if I could go back in time, I would have made the arch a little bit taller so we didn't have such a tiny shelf at the top, but this was my first time doing this. You live, you learn. I filled all the seams in with plastic wood and then had to go through and sand all of that down so it was perfectly flush for when we painted it. Here you can see the contrast between the Billy bookcases and the wood that we used, and so everything has been sanded down, and then we're going to paint it all the same color to make it look like one custom built-in unit. If you use Billy bookcases for your project, make sure that you put some brad nails through the backer board into the shelves so that it doesn't pop out when you're painting and stuff. For the second IKEA hack in this room, you're going to take these 2 Alex drawer sets and this IKEA tabletop and make them look totally built-in in this little window nook area that they have. To make the drawers look more traditional, we added this 1-inch molding around the drawer front so that we could cover off that little notched area. Because this prefab IKEA countertop only comes in specific sizes, it was just a little bit too short for this area, so I ripped down some of the pine on my table saw to fill in each of those little sections. Then, because the IKEA Alex drawer unit is going to pop out from the side a little bit, I put in these 2 trim pieces so that when you look from the side, you can't see into the unit. So with everything built in, it was time to prep and prime. When you are painting IKEA furniture, it's really important that you use the Bin Sizzler primer because paint does not like to stick to the surface of the IKEA stuff. So make sure that everything is primed before you paint it. I made one little mistake on the feature wall when I was cutting for an outlet, so I just decided to add this trim around it, and I think it turned out really cute. On the window behind the desk, I decided to mirror the trim that we did in between the bookcases, and I think it turned out really, really good. The last thing I wanted to do was case the opening because there's so much amazing trim work happening inside the office. I didn't want to leave this builder grade framing because it just looks really plain if you're looking into the office, I think. Eventually it would be so pretty to have custom French doors here, but in the meantime, this is a great fix. I'm using a combination of 1x6s, 1x4s, 1x3s, and 1x2s to get this effect, filling it all with plastic wood, caulking, priming it all, and then painting it. And then this is how we took this basic builder grade room to this amazing custom office. I think it turned out so good, and if you were to look at this room, I don't think your initial thought would be like, oh my gosh, there's so much IKEA in here. I think it really looks custom, high-end, provides them a lot more storage, and this room was actually pretty big, so it makes it feel so much cozier. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer.